The night was quiet, almost too quiet. The forest around the lake was filled with shadows, and the air was heavy with the smell of damp earth. A young man named Daniel walked along the narrow path, his boots pressing against the soft ground. He often came here when he wanted to think, when the noise of the town felt too heavy. The lake was his escape, a secret place where the stars reflected on the water like diamonds scattered across black glass. Daniel was not expecting company tonight. He carried no flashlight, only the soft glow of the moon guiding his way. He liked it that way. Silence, moonlight, and the endless whisper of the trees. But tonight that silence broke. A sound came from the water, not the usual splash of a fish or the ripple of wind. This was different. It was louder, urgent, almost human. Daniel stopped walking. His heart beat faster. He stared toward the dark lake. Something moved in the water, disturbing the calm surface. He took a cautious step closer, eyes narrowing. At first, he thought it was just the light playing tricks on him. But then he saw her. In the middle of the lake, waist-deep in water, was a figure glowing faintly in the moonlight. The shape was female. Her skin shimmered like silver, reflecting the light in a way no human skin could. Her hair floated behind her, strands that looked almost liquid, as if woven from starlight itself. And her eyes were bright blue, glowing softly even in the dark. Daniel froze. His breath caught in his throat. He blinked, thinking it must be his imagination. But the figure raised her hands and called out, "Human, please help me." The voice was not like anything he had ever heard. It was clear, soft, but carried an echo that seemed to touch the air itself. Daniel's blood ran cold. He had no doubt now. This was not a dream. This was not a trick of light. This was real. The woman moved closer to the shore, the water dripping down her glowing skin. That was when Daniel noticed something strange. She looked frightened. Her body trembled, her movements sharp and desperate. She wrapped her arms around herself as if she were exposed, as if something important was missing. "They stole my clothes," she cried again, her voice breaking. "Please, I have nothing. I am not safe." Daniel stepped back, almost stumbling. His mind raced. Who was she? What was she? Every story he had read about strange creatures and spirits rushed into his head. But this was no ghost, no spirit. She was solid, real, alive. He looked around, half expecting someone else to be nearby, some hidden camera crew or a cruel prank. But there was nothing. Only the forest, the lake, and the glowing woman staring at him with desperate eyes. "I don't understand," Daniel said quietly, though his voice shook. "Who stole from you? Why?" The woman's glowing eyes locked onto his. There was a kind of sadness in them, but also trust. She took another step closer until the water reached only her knees. "Hunters," she whispered. "They stole my clothes, human." "But my clothes?" "They are not simple. They are my armor. Without it, I am weak. I am vulnerable. Armor. Hunters." Daniel's mind spun with confusion. His heart pounded so loud it almost drowned out her words. He opened his mouth to speak. But before he could, a new sound cut through the night. A branch cracked in the distance. Then another. Daniel whipped his head toward the forest. The sound was close. Too close. His stomach tightened. They were not alone. The woman's glowing eyes widened with fear. She clutched herself tighter, shivering though the night was not cold. "They are still here," she whispered urgently. "The hunters. They search for me." Daniel's throat went dry. "Hunters, out here?" His instinct screamed at him to run, to get away before whatever danger lurked in the trees found him. But his eyes returned to the woman. She looked at him as if he were her only hope, her last chance. He swallowed hard. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Because you are human," she said simply, her voice breaking like a plea. "And humans, they are braver than they know." Another sound came from the forest, this time a low hum, like some kind of machine powering up. A faint red light flickered between the trees, moving closer. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. He did not know what was coming, but he knew one thing. This night was no longer ordinary. The quiet forest was now a battlefield, and he had just stepped into the middle of it. The woman's glowing eyes burned into his. She reached out her hand, trembling but steady in her plea. "Please," she said again, her voice filled with fear and urgency. "Help me. Without you, I cannot survive." Daniel stared at her hand, his mind caught between fear and something deeper. He did not understand who she was or what hunted her, but he knew one thing for certain. The moment he touched her hand, his life would never be the same again. The forest grew silent for a heartbeat. The lake shimmered under the moon, and the shadows of the hunters drew closer. Daniel took a deep breath and he reached out. The first mystery, Daniel's hand shook as it touched hers. Her skin was not like human skin. It was cool, smooth, and faintly glowing, as if she carried starlight inside her veins. The moment his fingers brushed against hers, a soft current of energy ran through him. His chest tightened, but not from fear. It was something else, something strange and new. The alien woman held on to him, her grip firm, though her body still trembled. She pulled herself fully from the lake, water dripping from her silver skin, pooling at her feet. Daniel quickly pulled off his jacket and handed it to her. She looked at it with surprise, then gently wrapped it around her shoulders. The jacket looked too small for her tall, lean form, but she held it close as if it were precious. "You give me your cover," she whispered, her voice low, almost like a song. "You are kind." Daniel forced a nervous laugh. "It's just a jacket," but deep inside he felt a weight in her words. To her, this was more than cloth. It was a gift of trust. The forest around them seemed to breathe with danger. Every rustle of leaves felt sharper. The hunter she spoke of could be anywhere. Daniel wanted answers, but he didn't even know where to begin. "Who are you?" he asked finally. "What are you doing here, and why?" "Why would someone steal your clothes?" She lowered her glowing eyes, sadness filling her face. "I am called Seriya. I come from far away, beyond your sky. I was sent here to observe, to learn of your world. But when I came to this water to cleanse myself, they came." "Hunters?" Daniel asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes, they are not from your world either. They travel across many places, searching for prey, for power. They saw me alone and weak. They took my armor. Without it, I cannot protect myself. Without it, I am only half of who I am." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Armor. Hunters. None of this sounded like anything he could handle. He was just an ordinary man. He worked, ate, slept, and sometimes walked to this lake to clear his head. But now a glowing alien stood before him, asking for his help against dangerous beings from beyond the stars. "Why would they come here?" Daniel asked, shaking his head. "Why Earth?" Her voice turned heavy. "Because Earth is unguarded. Your people do not know what waits in the dark between stars. To the hunters, your world is open. Easy. If they break me, if they take my armor, they will return with more. And then..." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Then your kind will suffer." Daniel felt a shiver crawl down his back. He looked toward the forest again. A red light flickered faintly between the trees, gone as soon as it appeared. His stomach twisted. This was not a dream. This was real. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that if I don't help you, they could come for everyone?" Seriya met his gaze. Her glowing eyes were steady now, no longer trembling. "Yes, you must understand. This is bigger than me. But if I fall tonight, they will take your world piece by piece." Daniel's mind screamed at him to run. He was not a soldier. He had no weapons. What could one man do against hunters from another world? Yet when he looked at her, he saw more than fear. He saw hope. She believed in him, even if he didn't. "Why me?" he asked again, frustration in his voice. "I'm just normal. Why not call someone else? Why not someone stronger?" Her lips curved in the faintest, saddest smile. "Because no one else is here, only you. And sometimes it is the quiet ones who change everything." Daniel swallowed hard. His hands were cold. His heart thudded like a drum. He wanted to argue, to deny it all, but deep inside something stirred, a whisper he could not ignore. What if she was right? Before he could respond, a new sound rose from the forest. Low, mechanical, like metal grinding against stone. Seriya stiffened. Her glowing skin dimmed slightly as if fear drained her light. "They are close," she said, her voice sharp. "We must move." Daniel hesitated. "Move where?" "To find my armor," she said quickly. "It was taken not far from here. If I recover it, I can fight. Without it..." Her voice trailed off, leaving the unspoken truth hanging in the night air. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. This was madness. But when the red light flared again between the trees, stronger this time, his choice became clear. Run away and pretend none of this happened, or stand by her even if it meant stepping into danger. Seriya reached out her hand again, eyes glowing faintly. "I cannot do this alone, Daniel." Hearing his name on her lips made his heart skip. He hadn't told her his name. She simply knew it. "How do you..." he began. I feel it, she said softly. Your name is written in your spirit. Daniel stared at her, his fear mixing with wonder. The forest grew louder with every passing second, the hunters moving closer. He took a deep breath, his decision burning inside him. All right, he said, voice shaking but firm. I'll help you. But don't expect me to be some kind of hero. Seriya's lips curved again, this time with quiet strength. Sometimes the hero does not see himself until the battle begins. She stepped closer, her glowing presence warm beside him. Together they turned toward the dark forest where danger waited, and with each step into the shadows, Daniel felt the world he once knew slipping away, replaced by a mystery far larger than anything he had ever imagined. The chase begins. The forest swallowed them as Daniel followed Seriya deeper into the dark. The moonlight barely touched the ground now, and every tree seemed to lean in, whispering secrets he was not meant to hear. The air grew colder, and with each breath Daniel felt the weight of danger pressing closer. Seriya moved quickly, her steps soft and graceful, though she still clutched his jacket tightly around her shoulders. Her glowing skin had dimmed to a faint shimmer, almost as if she was trying to hide her light. Daniel's own footsteps sounded clumsy by comparison. He tried to step carefully, but every twig he snapped made him wince. Stay close, Seriya whispered. Her voice was urgent but calm. They are near. They can smell fear. Daniel's chest tightened. They can what? But before she could answer, a sound drifted through the trees, a deep hum, steady and mechanical, followed by a sharp clicking noise, like metal claws tapping against stone. Daniel froze. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Seriya's head turned sharply. Her glowing eyes narrowed. They are hunting. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. What do they want with you? They want my armor, she said quickly, her words clipped. With it, they can command great power. But they also want me because I am rare. They will not let me live. Her words sent a shiver racing down Daniel's spine. This was no small game of thieves. These hunters were predators and she was their prize. Then the forest lit up with a flash of red. Between the trees, Daniel saw a tall figure, humanoid but twisted. Its skin was not skin at all but metal, black and sharp-edged. A red visor glowed where eyes should have been, cutting through the dark like fire. Its hands ended in long claws that glinted with wetness as if already stained by something it had killed. Daniel's stomach churned. His legs wanted to run, but Seriya grabbed his arm. Do not move, she whispered. If they hear us, they will strike. Daniel held his breath. The hunter's head turned slowly, scanning the area. The red light from its visor swept across the forest floor, pausing for a moment near where they stood behind a tree. Daniel pressed himself against the bark, his heart hammering against his ribs. He could hear the faint hum of the creature's breathing, mechanical and unnatural. The hunter stepped closer. Daniel's mind screamed at him to run, but Seriya placed a steadying hand on his chest. Her glowing eyes locked onto his, silently commanding him to stay still. For a moment, Daniel thought the hunter would find them. Its red light passed over the tree, then lingered. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Then suddenly a sharp screech split the air. Another hunter called from deeper in the forest, a signal. The one in front of them turned its head, clicked its claws against a tree trunk and moved away toward the sound. Daniel exhaled so sharply he almost fell to his knees. His body shook from the effort of staying silent. They are searching in packs, Seriya whispered, her voice low. We must keep moving before they close the circle. Daniel nodded, though every part of him wanted to collapse. He had never been so close to death. But he followed her, his steps quicker now, fueled by adrenaline. They moved deeper until the trees thickened, and the air smelled of moss and damp stone. Seriya suddenly stopped and raised a hand. Daniel froze beside her. Ahead, the forest opened into a small clearing. In the center, something glimmered faintly under the moonlight. Daniel squinted and realized it was a piece of metal. Smooth, silver, almost like the material of Seriya's skin. My armor, she breathed. Hope lit her glowing eyes. But before she could take a step, a low growl echoed from the shadows. Daniel turned his head and saw them. Not one, but 3 hunters stepping into the clearing. Their red visors glowed, scanning the ground. They moved with eerie silence, like shadows given form. Seriya's body stiffened. She crouched low, pulling Daniel with her behind the brush. Her whisper was sharp. They guard it. They know I will come. Daniel's stomach dropped. His hands felt clammy. and his mind screamed at him again to leave, to run back to the safety of the town. But when he looked at Seriya, he saw something else. She was not just afraid. She was determined. She would go into that clearing no matter the cost, he whispered back, his voice shaking. What's the plan? Seriya turned to him, her glowing face only inches from his. You asked why I need you. This is why. I cannot reach my armor without drawing them, but you. They will not expect you. Daniel's mouth went dry. You want me to distract them? She nodded. A small chance is better than none. If I have my armor, I can fight. If I do not, we will both die. Daniel stared at her, his thoughts racing. He was no fighter. He was just a man who liked quiet nights by the lake. But now the fate of an alien, and maybe even the world, rested on his shoulders. He closed his eyes, took a shaky breath, and opened them again. All right, he said, his voice low but firm. Tell me what to do. Seriya's lips curved into the faintest smile. Be brave, Daniel. That is all you need. In the clearing, the hunters moved closer to the silver armor piece, their red lights cutting across the grass. The night grew heavier with silence, every second pulling Daniel closer to a choice he could never undo. He tightened his fists. He had no weapons, no strength compared to them. But he had his mind. And sometimes a mind was sharper than any claw. The chase had truly begun. The human decision. Daniel crouched low in the brush, his eyes fixed on the hunters in the clearing. Their black metal bodies glinted under the moonlight, each movement sharp and precise. The red visors swept across the trees, scanning, searching. They looked like predators made of machines, but the sound of their claws clicking against the ground made them feel alive in a way that chilled him to the bone. Beside him, Seriya's glowing eyes never blinked. Her body was tense, coiled like a bowstring ready to snap. Daniel could feel the weight of her hope pressing on him. She needed her armor. Without it, she was vulnerable. Without it, she might not survive. And she had asked him, an ordinary man, to distract 3 hunters. His mouth was dry, his palms slick with sweat. His chest tightened as fear battled against reason. Everything in him screamed, run, leave, this is not your fight. But when he looked at Seriya, huddled in his too small jacket, trembling yet unbroken, something shifted inside him. For the first time in his life, someone truly needed him. Not for a favor, not for a small kindness, but for survival, he whispered, his voice shaking. If I do this, if I distract them, what then? Seriya's eyes met his. Then I take back my armor. Once I have it, I will protect us both. Daniel looked at the hunters again. They were massive, taller than any human, their claws digging small grooves into the earth as they moved. He had no weapon, no training. All he had was his mind. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought. He remembered something simple. When he was a boy, he used to play in this forest. He and his friends would throw stones to trick each other, to make them run in the wrong direction. It wasn't much. But it was something. Opening his eyes, he whispered, all right, I think I know what to do. Seriya tilted her head, her voice soft. You are not like the others, he gave a nervous laugh. Trust me, I'm exactly like the others. I'm just too stubborn to quit. She smiled faintly, then touched his hand, her cool skin grounding him. That stubbornness. It may save us both, Daniel nodded. Then carefully he reached for the ground, feeling for small rocks. His fingers closed around a few smooth stones, just like when he was a child. He tested their weight in his hand. The hunters were scanning in one direction. If he could throw the rocks far enough, maybe they'd follow the sound. He waited, his breath slow, his body still. The hunter's red visors swept across the clearing again, then turned toward the far side. Daniel stood slightly, pulled his arm back, and hurled a rock with all his strength. It clattered loudly against a tree trunk far behind them. The sound echoed through the clearing. Instantly, the hunters turned. Their heads snapped toward the noise. One of them let out a sharp metallic screech, and all 3 began moving in that direction, their claws clicking rapidly as they vanished into the shadows. Daniel almost collapsed with relief. His plan had worked, at least for now. Seriya's glowing eyes widened, surprise clear on her face. You tricked them. He gave a shaky grin. Old childhood game. Guess it still works on aliens. But before they could celebrate, the forest answered back with another sound. The hunters weren't gone for long. 2 of them returned quickly, scanning harder now, suspicion in their movements. Only one had chased the noise fully. The other 2 circled the clearing, more cautious. Daniel cursed under his breath. They're smarter than I thought. Seriya's hand touched his shoulder. Her voice was steady. Your trick gave us a chance. That is all we need. Daniel looked at her, then back at the silver armor lying in the grass. It gleamed faintly under the moonlight, so close yet so guarded. He felt the weight of choice pressing harder now. He could run and leave her to fight alone, or he could stand with her even if it meant facing death. Fear clawed at him, but deeper inside, something stronger stirred. A quiet voice, steady and clear. Be more. Do not turn away. His fist tightened. His legs shook, but he did not back down. All right, Daniel whispered. I'll give you a bigger opening. When they chase me, grab the armor. No hesitation. Understand? Seriya's eyes widened. You will draw them out yourself? They could kill you? Daniel swallowed hard. Maybe. But if I don't try, they'll kill us both anyway. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Seriya leaned closer, her voice low and fierce. Humans, you surprise me. Daniel smirked nervously. I surprise myself too. He stood, his body trembling, but his decision clear. He stepped out from behind the brush and into the clearing. The hunters froze. Their red visors locked onto him instantly. Daniel's heart pounded, but he forced a grin. Hey, over here, you ugly tin cans. The hunters screeched in unison, their claws slicing through the dirt as they charged toward him. Behind him, Seriya's glowing eyes burned brighter. Her chance had come. The human had made his choice, and the forest trembled as the hunters closed in. The fight for the armor. The hunters lunged across the clearing, their metal claws tearing the ground as they charged. Daniel's body screamed at him to run, but his legs moved before his mind could argue. He sprinted to the side, crashing through low brush, his breath loud in his ears. The first hunter swiped at him, claws slicing through bark where his head had been a second earlier. Splinters exploded across his face. Daniel stumbled but kept moving, his heart hammering. Keep chasing me, he muttered under his breath. Come on, just keep chasing me. The red glow of the hunter's visors followed. Their screeches rattled the trees, a sound that made his bones ache. Daniel zigzagged, ducking low branches, forcing the creatures to crash through obstacles instead of running in clean lines. He didn't need to fight them. He just needed to buy time. Behind him, Seriya crouched in the brush, watching. As the hunters focused on Daniel, she crept toward the clearing. Her glowing eyes locked on the piece of silver armor lying in the grass. Every step she took was slow, silent, calculated. Daniel reached a cluster of fallen logs. His chest heaved, lungs burning. He grabbed a heavy branch, thick and sharp at one end, and swung it behind him as the nearest hunter lunged. The branch cracked against the creature's head. Sparks burst where wood met metal, and the hunter staggered back, screeching in rage. Daniel dropped the branch, his arms throbbing. Not so tough when it's wood, huh? He muttered, though his voice shook. Another hunter leaped at him, claws flashing. Daniel rolled to the side, dirt grinding into his palms. He grabbed a rock and hurled it with all his strength. The stone struck the creature's visor, leaving a small crack. Not much, but enough to make it pause, jerking its head back with a distorted shriek. He didn't wait. He scrambled up, running again, drawing them farther from the clearing. His chest burned. His legs screamed, but he kept moving. Back in the clearing, Seriya reached the armor. She dropped to her knees, her glowing fingers brushing against the silver surface. Her voice trembled with relief. At last. The armor shimmered faintly as she touched it. Recognizing her presence, small threads of light crawled up her arms, wrapping around her body. Piece by piece, the silver material unfolded and reformed, sliding across her skin like liquid metal. It covered her chest, her shoulders, her legs, reshaping itself into a suit that looked both elegant and deadly. Daniel, still running, risked a glance over his shoulder. His eyes widened as he saw the transformation. Seriya rose to her feet, now clad in sleek silver armor that glowed softly against the night. She no longer looked fragile. She looked powerful, radiant like a warrior carved from light. But his relief didn't last. One hunter had stayed behind, guarding from the trees. As Seriya stood, it leapt toward her, claws raised high. Daniel's stomach dropped. Seriya! She turned just as the creature struck. Her hand shot out, catching its claw mid-swipe. Sparks flew as metal met metal. Seriya's glowing eyes narrowed. With a sharp twist, she wrenched the hunter's arm aside and slammed her armored fist into its chest. The impact echoed like thunder. The creature flew backward, crashing into a tree so hard the trunk cracked. Daniel stopped running, his mouth open in shock. Holy, but he had no time to finish. The other two hunters turned from him and shrieked toward the clearing, realizing too late that their prize was no longer unguarded. Seriya stepped forward, her silver armor humming with energy. Her voice rang clear across the forest. "You will not take me, and you will not take this world," the hunters charged. The first swung its claws at her head. She ducked low, her armor glowing brighter, and drove her elbow into its gut. Energy pulsed from the strike, sending the creature flying into the dirt. The second leapt at her from behind, claws extended, but she spun and raised her arm. A glowing shield of light formed instantly, the claws scraping uselessly against it. With a sharp push, she sent the shield forward, knocking the hunter back. Daniel watched, his heart racing. She was incredible, faster, stronger, unstoppable. But even as she fought, the hunters did not falter. They rose again, screeching louder, red visors burning brighter. Seriya fought like a storm, her strikes glowing with bursts of energy. She kicked one hunter into the air, spun, and blasted another with a wave of light from her palm. Trees shook. The ground cracked. The forest lit up like lightning. Daniel could only stare. The woman who had begged for help at the lake was gone. In her place stood a warrior, but the fight was not easy. The hunters moved in perfect sync, flanking her, forcing her to divide her strikes. Sparks burst each time claws scraped her armor, leaving faint glowing lines across its surface. Daniel realized with a jolt, even with her power, she was outnumbered. He looked around desperately. His eyes landed on a jagged rock the size of his head. He grabbed it, staggered forward, and hurled it at one of the hunters. The rock struck its leg with a sharp crack, just enough to make it stumble. Seriya seized the opening. She spun, her armored fist glowing bright, and slammed it into the creature's chest. The blow tore through its core. The hunter screeched, sparks flying, before collapsing in silence. Daniel blinked. Did I just help kill one of those things?" Seriya turned her glowing eyes to him, a fierce smile on her face. Yes, together. The last two hunters hissed, their visors burning brighter. But for the first time, Daniel felt no urge to run. He felt the fire of something new, courage. The battle was far from over. But now they stood side by side, human and alien, ordinary and extraordinary, ready to fight as one. The turning point. The forest shook with the echoes of the fight. The fallen hunter lay broken on the ground, sparks flickering weakly from its chest, but the other two were far from defeated. Their red visors glowed brighter than before, their claws stretching longer, sharper, as if the death of their kin had awakened something more vicious inside them. Daniel stood near the edge of the clearing, his chest heaving. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to run, yet his legs stayed rooted. For the first time, he wasn't just an observer. He was part of the fight. Seriya stood tall beside him, her silver armor gleaming with power. Her glowing eyes fixed on the two hunters as she raised her hand. Energy pulsed along her armor, humming like a living thing. She was ready. One hunter let out a piercing screech and charged, claws slicing through the night air. Seriya moved like lightning. She met its strike with her forearm, sparks flying as claw met armor. With a swift twist, she caught its arm, pulled it off balance, and drove her knee into its midsection. The blow sent a shockwave rippling through the ground, knocking dirt and leaves into the air. The second hunter lunged at her back. Daniel's heart leapt into his throat. "Behind you!" Seriya spun, her armor glowing brighter. A disk of light formed in her hand and flew outward like a blade. It struck the hunter in the chest, cutting deep into its armor. The creature screeched, stumbling back, black fluid dripping from the wound. Daniel's jaw dropped. Okay, that was new, but the hunters weren't slowing. The wounded one roared and fired something from its chest, a blast of searing red energy. The beam shot through the clearing, scorching trees in its path. Seriya raised her arms, and a shield of silver light expanded around her just in time. The beam struck, exploding in a flash of heat and sparks. Daniel ducked, covering his head, his ears ringing. The blast rattled his bones, and when the smoke cleared, he saw Seriya still standing, her shield glowing but cracked. "They adapt," she said sharply, her voice grim. "Each strike makes them stronger." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Stronger? You mean—" "Yes," she cut in. "They learn." The uninjured hunter circled them, its visor scanning, claws twitching with hunger. The wounded one steadied itself, the crack in its chest already sparking as if repairing. Together they moved in a deadly rhythm, step by step, tightening the circle around Seriya and Daniel. Daniel's mind raced. If they learned from every strike, then brute force wouldn't work. Even Seriya's strength might not be enough if they adapted fast enough. He looked down at the ground, scanning for anything useful. His eyes caught on the remains of the broken hunter. Wires, shards of black metal, a faintly glowing core half buried in dirt. An idea sparked in his mind. Crazy, dangerous, but it might work. Seriya, he hissed, pointing at the wreckage. That thing's core, can it still explode? Her glowing eyes flicked toward the broken machine. For a moment she said nothing. Then she nodded slowly. Yes, if struck with enough force, it will detonate. Daniel's throat went dry. Big enough to take out the other two? She hesitated, then answered. Yes, but you would need to draw them close. Daniel's heart pounded. The thought of luring those monsters toward him made his skin crawl, but he forced his fear down. I can do that. Seriya looked at him sharply. It is too dangerous. You are fragile. Daniel let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, I know. But maybe that's why they underestimate me. For a moment, their eyes locked. Seriya's expression softened, pride flickering in her glowing gaze. Humans, she whispered. Always choosing the impossible. Before Daniel could respond, the hunters struck again. The uninjured one lunged at Seriya while the wounded one raised its clawed hand, charging another red beam. Now, Daniel shouted. He sprinted toward the wreckage, his legs burning, his breath ragged. The hunters noticed instantly. Both screeched and turned, red visors locking onto him. Daniel's blood turned cold. Every step felt like a death sentence. But he kept running, diving over the broken metal and landing beside the glowing core. It pulsed faintly, unstable. The hunters thundered after him, claws ripping through dirt and stone. Daniel grabbed a jagged shard of armor from the wreckage and held it like a spear. Come on, he growled, forcing courage into his voice. Come get me. The first hunter leapt, claws raised. Daniel ducked and swung the shard with all his strength, slamming it into the glowing core. Sparks exploded. The core hissed, the light inside growing wild, unstable. Seriya, he shouted. She understood instantly. She sprinted forward, her armor glowing bright as a star. She grabbed Daniel and yanked him into her arms, shielding him as the hunters reached the wreckage. The core detonated. The explosion tore through the clearing with a roar like thunder. Light and fire erupted, swallowing the hunters in a storm of sparks and shattered metal. The ground shook violently, trees bending under the shockwave. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut, clinging to Seriya's armored frame. When the blast faded, the clearing was a ruin. Smoke drifted through the air, glowing embers falling like fireflies. The two hunters were nothing but twisted wreckage, their red visors shattered, their claws scattered across the dirt. Daniel slowly opened his eyes. His ears rang and his chest hurt from the force of the blast. But he was alive. Seriya released him, her armor flickering faintly as it absorbed the last of the shock. She looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with something new. Respect. You risked your life for a chance, she said softly, and you won. Daniel staggered to his feet, legs shaking, dirt covering his face. He let out a rough laugh. Guess humans aren't so fragile after all. Seriya stepped closer, her armored hand resting gently on his shoulder. No, you are not fragile. You are dangerous, to anyone who underestimates you. For the first time that night, Daniel didn't feel ordinary. He felt capable. But then Seriya's gaze shifted, her expression darkening. She looked beyond the trees, her voice dropping to a whisper. This was only the first wave. Daniel's stomach dropped. Wait, first wave? Her eyes glowed brighter, fierce and sad. More are coming. And not just for me. They will come for you now, Daniel. Because tonight you proved what humans can do. Daniel stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. His quiet life was gone. The hunters would return, and this time they wouldn't stop with her. The turning point had come and there was no going back. The ending. The smoke still curled through the clearing, drifting upward like ghostly fingers. Daniel coughed, waving away the haze as his legs trembled beneath him. The remains of the hunters sparked weakly in the dirt. Their once deadly bodies now nothing but broken metal and glowing fragments. Silence fell. For a long moment, Daniel just stood there gasping for breath, his mind refusing to catch up with what had just happened. He had run from creatures not of this world, tricked them, lured them, and helped destroy them. He should have been terrified. He should have been running home, hiding under his bed, and pretending none of this had ever happened. But he wasn't. Instead, as he looked at Seriya standing before him, silver armor glowing faintly in the dark, He felt something else entirely, pride. She turned toward him, her glowing eyes soft, her voice low but steady. You did more than I expected, Daniel. Without you, I would not be standing here. Daniel gave a rough laugh, his throat dry. Yeah, well, I didn't exactly expect any of this either. He gestured toward the wreckage. A few hours ago, I was just a guy walking by the lake. Now I'm, what, a target for aliens? Seriya's expression grew serious. She stepped closer, her armor humming quietly, and placed a hand on his shoulder. Not just a target, a witness. And in time, perhaps something more. Daniel frowned. Witness to what? Her glowing gaze shifted past him toward the sky. The trees swayed gently in the night breeze, but the way she stared upward made his chest tighten. The hunters are not alone, she said finally. They serve something greater, something far stronger. These three were only scouts. The rest will come once they realize their pack has fallen. Daniel's stomach turned cold. You mean more of them? Dozens? Hundreds? Seriya's eyes dimmed slightly, sadness flickering across her face. Enough to burn this world if they choose. Daniel swallowed hard, his heart sinking. His mind flashed with images, cities under attack, skies filled with red light, humans screaming as hunters cut through them. He shook his head violently, pushing the thought away. No, he said firmly, though his voice cracked. That can't happen. We have armies, weapons, nukes even. We're not helpless. Seriya looked back at him, her glowing eyes heavy with truth. Your armies will fall. Your weapons will break. You're not ready for what walks between the stars. The weight of her words pressed down on him like a mountain. For a moment he almost gave in to despair, but then he remembered how she had looked at him earlier, how she had said humans were braver than they knew. Maybe we're not ready, Daniel admitted, his fists clenched at his sides. But we'll fight anyway. That's what humans do. We don't give up. Seriya tilted her head, studying him as if seeing him anew. Slowly, her lips curved into the faintest smile. Yes, that is why they will fear you. Daniel blinked. Fear me, fear us? You just said they could destroy us. Power is not the same as strength, Seriya said softly. Strength is what you showed tonight. You had nothing, yet you stood against them. You survived when you should have fallen. That is what the hunters cannot understand. That is why you matter. Daniel exhaled, his chest tightening. He didn't know whether to feel honored or horrified. Before he could respond, the night shifted. A low rumble rolled across the sky, so deep it vibrated in the earth beneath their feet. Daniel looked up and his blood froze. Above the forest, hidden behind drifting clouds, faint red lights flickered. Not stars, not planes. Something else. Something moving. Seriya's face hardened. Her armor shimmered brighter, preparing itself. They are already searching. We must move. Daniel stepped back, panic rising. Wait, more of them, already? I thought, there is no time, she cut in sharply. Once their eyes fall on you, they will never stop. You are part of this now, Daniel. You cannot return to your old life. The words hit him like a blade. No more quiet walks by the lake. No more ordinary nights. His world was gone, replaced by a war he had never asked for. He wanted to protest, to tell her she was wrong, that he wasn't built for this. But when he looked into her glowing eyes, he saw not just fear, but faith. She believed in him. And somewhere deep inside, a part of him wanted to believe it too. Daniel took a shaky breath, steadying himself. All right. If I'm part of this now, then tell me what I need to do. Seriya's eyes glowed brighter, her voice strong. Survive, learn, and fight when the time comes. The hunters think humans are weak, but we will prove them wrong. Together. Daniel nodded slowly, the weight of the moment sinking in. He glanced once more at the glowing red lights flickering in the sky. A chill ran down his spine. The night was far from over, and for the first time in his life, Daniel realized that the survival of more than just himself, maybe even the survival of Earth, could depend on him. The forest grew silent again, but this silence was different, heavy, watching, waiting. Somewhere in the shadows, more hunters were already on their way. The story was only beginning.